What's going on, guys? We are at that point in the cycle where half the comments on YouTube are calling me an idiot, and then half of them agree with me about where the market is going to go. I asked Grok Heavy, a really good question about everybody panicking, and is this going to be the top of the market? I'm going to break down the answer in just a moment, but before that, guys, every Q4 of the year after the Bitcoin halving, Bitcoin rallies. Okay, in 2013, Bitcoin rallied around 800% in Q4. In 2017, Bitcoin rallied around 350%. And in 2021, Bitcoin rallied around 45%. Q4 begins October 1st. So we have all of September, which is historically a down month. And then we go into Q4, which I just showed you. Every post-halving year, it rallies. So I want to start out with that. And right here, this is the question that I asked Grok Heavy, the $300 a month Grok, which is probably a waste of money, like a lot of you guys said, but nonetheless, I'm going to ask you questions about what is going to happen. So here's the question. Right now, a lot of people are panicking and asking if the Bitcoin bull market is officially over, or if this is just another healthy correction. Can you break down the strongest arguments for both sides? Why some analysts think the top is already in, and why others believe we still have plenty of room to grow. Specifically, I'd like you to look at historical 4-year cycle patterns, while also questioning whether that cycle still applies today, current on-chain data like exchange reserves and long-term holder behavior, macroeconomic factors like Fed policy and global liquidity, and institutional adoption trends such as spot ETF flows. Based on all of that, give me a clear picture of whether this pullback looks more like a typical mid-cycle shakeout rather than the end of the bull run. And Grok Heavy thought for 2 minutes and 41 seconds. It did all sorts of research on its own. And let me just get to the point. So the argument that the bull market top is already in. Analysts pointing to a potential peak emphasize cycle exhaustion, weakening momentum, and external pressures. Here's a breakdown of key factors. So Bitcoin cycles driven by halvings every 4 years or so typically see peaks 12 to 18 months post-halving. That is true. The 2024 halving occurred in April, placing a potential top between April and October of 2025, with August 2025 marking around 16 months post-halving and Bitcoin recently hitting all-time highs over 120K. Some argue the cycle is playing out as expected with diminishing returns. However, critics question its ongoing relevance. For example, we now have spot ETFs and institutional inflows, which have altered supply dynamics, potentially extending or breaking the cycle, as seen in predictions of a bull run lasting until 2027. Next, we got on-chain data. Exchange reserves have risen slightly in August 2025 amid the pullback, signaling potential increased selling pressure from short-term holders who capitulated and sold. Long-term holder behavior shows some distribution, like whales are selling, right? With the reserve risk indicator flashing a major top signal in early August, indicating overvaluation, which would mean that we would need to come back down, and reduced long-term holder conviction. So that wouldn't be good for a continuing cycle. Realized capitulation hit 1 trillion, but elevated sell-side risk suggests profit-taking is underway, which is true. People are taking profits, reminiscent of 2021's peak. So that would be in favor of this cycle being over. Take a look at macro factors. Fed policy remains hawkish, with rates frozen at around 4.25 to 4.5%, amid 2.7% core PCE, pausing expected cuts. So if we don't get a cut in September, yikes. This tight liquidity environment, combined with a strengthening US dollar index forming a bottom, pressures risk assets like Bitcoin. Global liquidity is constrained, mirroring 2022's bear market triggers, and Jackson Hole uncertainty in August exacerbated the 7 to 8% plunge. So these are all reasons that the market could be over, okay? And the last one for why the market could be done, institutional adoption trends. Spot ETF flows turned negative in mid-August, with outflows exceeding 1.2 billion over 6 days, coinciding with Bitcoin's drop from 124K to 108K. This suggests waning institutional appetite, potentially signaling a sentiment shift as ETFs holding billions begin unwinding positions amid macro headwinds. Arguments that there's plenty of room to grow. All right, let's finish on a bullish note. Yes, hopium. Optimists view the pullback as a healthy reset, supported by strong fundamentals and cycle extensions. Projections range from 145K to 280K by late 2025, with consensus around 180K to 250K per Bitcoin. Historical 4-year cycle patterns. All right, so while the 4-year framework holds, it's evolving. The 2024-2025 cycle, which we're in right now, has already surpassed prior highs faster due to ETF-driven demand, defying, quote, diminishing returns. Analysts argue the cycle could extend to 2027 as institutional factors disrupt traditional timing, similar to how 2020's cycle was prolonged by the COVID liquidity. And I agree with a lot of this. So the 4-year halving could be changed from institutional demand and, 401ks getting involved, nation states, countries, governments, right? This is all very, very different. So next we got on-chain data. Exchange reserves remain historically low overall, reducing sell pressure. Long-term holders are dominating, with holding up to 230% year over year in continued accumulation, signaling conviction. Institutional on-chain activity shows rising accumulation, with short-term holder shrinkage indicating a shakeout of weak hands. Metrics like realized cap at 1 trillion reflect growing long-term holder strength, and Bitcoin's on-chain resilience point to a new era of hodling, not capitulating. Next, macro factors. Potential Fed rate cuts, if inflation eases, could boost liquidity, historically fueling risk-on rallies in crypto. Absolutely. Even with current pauses, lower rates are seen as imminent, with analysts noting that high rates' negative impact may be overstated given Bitcoin's decorrelation from traditional assets. Not quite sure Bitcoin is fully decorrelated, but here we go. Global liquidity, while tight, is supported by ETF inflows, offsetting pressures, and a dovish pivot could ignite Bitcoin's ascent. So before I get further, the M2 money supply hits a new all-time high. And like it says here, infinite fiat, yes, versus 21 million Bitcoin. The bull case has never been more obvious. So, M2 will continue to go up, right? Nothing's really going to stop that. So next we got institutional adoption trends. Despite recent outflows, net ETF inflows since January 2024 exceed $50 billion or so, underpinning the bull run. August's mixed flows suggest temporary caution, not a reversal, with institutional demand via ETFs fueling optimism. This contrasts with prior cycles' retail-driven peaks, indicating sustained growth potential. So the overall picture, it looks like a mid-cycle shakeout. Based on the data, this 15% pullback from August highs, so 124K to 108, where we are right now as me recording this, resembles a typical mid-cycle correction rather than the bull run's end. Historical cycles suggest we're in peak territory timing-wise, but on-chain metrics show long-term holders' accumulation and low exchange reserves, countering some top signals. Macro uncertainty from Fed pauses contributed to the dip, yet potential cuts loom as a catalyst, which is probably going to happen in September. ETF outflows are notable but dwarfed by year-to-date inflows, aligning with institutional consolidation. Overall, fundamentals remain bullish, with the drop shaking out short-term speculators, which always happens, consistent with 2017 and 2021 mid-cycle dips before final legs up. Again, 2021, 2017, and 2013, Q4, October, November, December. Massive moves. 800% in 2013, around 350% 2017, and then 2021, around a 45% move for Bitcoin. Risk leans towards continuation, targeting 145K, barring sustained macro deterioration. All right, guys. So that is Grok Heavy's interpretation of what's going on. Could it be wrong? Sure. Sure. But Q4 has always been a great year for Bitcoin. September always sucks. August is kind of mixed, right? So I still think we are going to go higher for Bitcoin. Could I be wrong? Sure. Yeah. But I still think that we are going to go higher. I don't see this ending right now. Unless, again, something really huge happens outside of Bitcoin. For example, the Fed does something out of the blue, like not cut rates, like totally change the tone. Or we get some black swan event like escalated geopolitical tensions, a war, whatever, aliens. Obviously, all that stuff can affect everything, including Bitcoin. Grok did mention that it thinks that Bitcoin has decorrelated from the stock market. Not convinced on that yet. But overall, I do agree with Grok. We will see what happens though. Let me know if you like these videos. And for the one person that's like, this is a lazy video, all you did is read, thank you for your comment. It helps the algorithm. So that's it for the video. Hope you guys are well. Till next time, talk with you soon, and bye for now.